science, technology, and society, allowing you to better understand how things work and how things around us are interconnected. Good morning, Philippines. Good morning, Tacloban City. This is Vince Lubina, and this is Q6 News, bringing you the most informative and the most relevant environmental discussions of today. And for today's discussion, we'll be talking about water crises that have been constantly affecting our lives in so many ways.
1 in 10 Filipinos, according to the World Health Organization, still lack access to better water sources. Poor water distribution, expensive infrastructure, and even the climate in the Philippines obstruct the right of the common Filipino to obtain clean water. Many Filipinos get their water through municipal system, which is derived from dams constructed across surface water sources such as rivers, estuaries, and streams. However, according to the Philippine government, only 36% of the country's rivers are designated as sources of public water supply, and only 42% of the country's groundwater is free from contamination. This fact alone highlights the need of our country to lay out an efficient water supply management plan. Today, the top 3 sources of water in the Philippines are tube wells or boreholes, bottled water, and water refilling stations. Despite the fact that there are many alternatives for water supply in the Philippines, most people still buy their water from commercial sources, which can consume a sizable portion of the ordinary Filipino's income. Some families even face difficult decisions over necessities they must forego in order to acquire bottled water. The system makes clean water to be out of reach for people who cannot afford it. Moreover, since the beginning of 2015, the Philippines has been contending with the ongoing threat of the extreme weather conditions known as El Nino. It has become the main cause of the severe droughts and dry seasons that Philippines suffer from March to June every year. In the season, some provinces are getting deprived of adequate water supply, resulting in people not getting enough water to drink, wash, or feed crops. Given the uncertainty of El Nino and the massive amount of damage it is capable of causing, there is a need for a more robust water management system to take into consideration dry seasons and to waterproof the country's water supply. The Philippines is a developing country. As time goes by, our need for resources increases as well. And because there's a finite amount of natural water available in the country, it becomes more difficult to provide adequate water and sanitation services. Due to inadequate management of the nation's ongoing water scarcity problems, leading agencies frequently face criticism and complaints from consumers. Water scarcity issues is worsening, and to alleviate this concern, we need our government to take immediate actions. This is Patricia Pajarito reporting. Back to you, Vince Lubina.
Thank you, Patch. Let us indeed hope that authorities take this water supply situation more seriously and provide us with effective solutions. As previously mentioned, water scarcity entails water sanitation problems. In the Philippines alone, millions have suffered health complications due to contaminated water sources. To delve more deeply into this topic, we have Ms. Curly Niza, Technical Officer, Water, Sanitation, and Health from World Health Organization Philippines to talk about water sanitation crisis. Ms. Niza?
In the Philippines, more than 3 million people depend on unsafe and unreliable water sources, and 7 million do not have access to improved water sanitation, which puts them at high risk of contracting waterborne illnesses and other potentially fatal conditions, such as acute watery diarrhea, which claimed over 139,000 lives in 2016, and was one of the top 10 leading causes of death in the country. Apparently, despite its growing economy, it appears that the Philippines' water sanitation crisis is more pervasive than most people realize. That is, access to water and sanitation is severely constrained as the rapid urbanization in the country makes it difficult for expanding cities to meet the needs of current and incoming residents in terms of water supply and sanitation management. In addition, many local or municipal governments in the country lack the funding resources necessary to provide their constituent with access to safe and clean water. Moreover, the government's capacity to provide high-quality public services has been significantly hampered by corruption and political culture. The dispersion of institutions, regulations, and programs pertaining to clean water, sanitation, and hygiene is a significant issue wherein the poor structures, plans, and implementation locally show the effects of the fragmentation. Moreover, marginalized communities are frequently excluded from water policies and services. While individual contributions are crucial, governments nevertheless have the obligation to offer long-term solutions that will ensure people will have access to clean and sustainable water. As things stand, the increasing population demand for water and the effects of climate change means that a reliance on surface water sources like rivers and lakes as well as groundwater will not be sustainable in the long run. Hence, ensuring clean water for all through the development and execution of water safety and sanitation planning, including strengthening drinking water quality surveillance and monitoring systems, are gravely important in ensuring that everyone or most people in the Philippines have access to safe drinking water. Again, the government's institution and private sectors must be made to realize that by addressing water sanitation crisis, we are also resolving financial inclusion and poverty reduction. That is, now more than ever, the health and welfare of families in the Philippines depends on access to clean and sustainable water.
Having to know that there are millions of Filipinos that have to suffer such health complications due to unsafe water sources is truly desolating. Thank you, Ms. Niza, for an interesting talk. Just recently, the residents of Tacloban City were alarmed by the rapid increase of cholera cases. It has also been reported that people have become skeptical with their water sources, particularly water refilling stations. To give us more details about this incident, we have invited Ms. Damsel Contapay, DOH Development and Operations Hydrologist. Ms. Contapay?
Thank you for that, Vince. Severe water issues is widespread across the Philippines, and one of the local water issues in the country is the cholera outbreak that recently transpired in Tacloban City. Cholera is an acute diarrheal infection caused by the intake of food or water infected with the bacterium Vibrio cholerae. According to the World Health Organization, cholera harms children and adults and can kill within hours of going untreated. The cholera outbreak in Tacloban City has 426 cases registered. In the entire province of Leyte, according to the DOH, there have been 7 cholera-related deaths. The World Health Organization stated that an infected person's feces are the typical source of contamination and can quickly spread to water supplies and food in places where sewage and drinking water are not properly treated. This raises concern for the security of the country's water resources, not just in Eastern Visayas. Another local water issue is water pollution. Untreated wastewater has a negative impact on health by dispersing pathogenic bacteria and viruses, contaminates water supplies for drinking and recreation, jeopardizes biodiversity, and lowers people's quality of life in general. There are increasingly more water-related illnesses and fatalities being reported in the media. There are numerous water-related laws in the Philippines, but they are not consistently enforced, leading to losses from environmental harm and pollution. Millions of Filipinos still experience problems with inadequate sewage, which were ranked as a high priority back then in the Philippines. There is significant underfunding by the government in these areas, indicating a low spending priority. Only a few households have acceptable effluent from on-site sanitation facilities, and only 7% of the country's population is connected to sewer systems. The water constraint is yet another water issue in the country. 9 million of the country's 100 million inhabitants still experience problems with inadequate, unhealthy, and unsustainable water sources. Even the largest metropolitan hub, Metro Manila, experiences insufficient and irregular water delivery, along with rural areas and low-income urban districts. Government-run water utilities have poor availability of sufficient water in terms of quantity and quality due to governance problems and inefficiencies. The lack of infrastructure and systems to meet the rising demand for water from a rapidly expanding population due to poor governance as well as rapid population growth is the cause of the current water shortage.
Thank you, Ms. Contapay. That was indeed alarming and frightening, especially because anyone can suffer from the disease, and the worst is, it might lead to more serious health problems. So we must all be careful and authorities need to take action. As it is a pressing national and global environmental concern, let us look into the solutions crafted and the actions taken by the experts to address it. To discuss it, we have Clara Aguilar from Q6 News. Clara, what do you have for us?
Several institutions and organizations have stepped forward to help combat the worldwide water issue. They are pursuing their individual paths and solutions, leading towards one goal: to provide an accessible, safe, adequate, affordable, and sustainable water supply and sanitation to people in need, particularly those in remote locations throughout the world. Several measures have been taken by government to meet such demands, and they are partnering with organizations to make their initiatives a reality. In the Philippines, the National Economic and Development Authority, or NEDA, launched the Philippine Water Supply and Sanitation Master Plan, or the PWSSMP, which serves as a national action plan to achieve universal access to safe, sufficient, affordable, and sustainable water supply, hygiene, and sanitation by 2030. The PWSSMP, which is linked to the National Water Supply and Sanitation Objectives, is based on the actual situation in every region, with involvement from over 1,000 representatives from all over the country. The master plan focuses on 8 key reform agenda: establishing effective water supply and sanitation sector institutions, strengthening the regulatory environment, creating and ensuring effective water supply and sanitation services, balancing water supply and demand, building climate resilience, enabling access to financing, managing data and information to determine baselines and gaps in investments, and driving research and development in the sector. During the Water Forum 2002 held in August, the NEDA Undersecretary for Investment Programming Joseph Capuno said that the Philippine government makes a total investment of more than 1 trillion pesos from 2020 to 2030 to achieve the country's water supply and sanitation targets. It was also stated that while we face a significant challenge, we should see it as an opportunity to invest in new approaches, tools, and ideas developed through collaborations with local governments, national governments, and the private sector to ensure that all Filipinos have access to safe, sufficient, affordable, and sustainable water supply and sanitation.
The master plan will be implemented in 4 phases. The first phase had already begun in 2019, and it is currently in its second phase. NEDA had already implemented several projects since 2020, and it will continue until 2023, because water is crucial to achieving the bigger development goals of poverty reduction, food, energy, cities, and health. Every individual must have access to a sustainable and affordable clean water supply, as well as sufficient and properly managed sanitation services. This is Clara Aguilar reporting.
Well, let us hope that the fight to combat water crisis further strengthens and experts never cease to devise plans and course of actions to support it. Thank you for the informative discussion, Clara. But before we end today's session, let us first listen to Ms. Shara Untuka, a United Nations water representative for ending noise from the issue. Ms. Shara, where do you think we, the citizens, should stand?
With a population of 109 million Filipinos, 3 million Filipinos lack access to safe water, and 7 million Filipinos lack access to proper sanitation. The country has been confronting crisis in water supply and sanitation for long years. As a result, many of our countrymen have been vulnerable to serious health risks, such as the cholera outbreak in the country, which included the province of Leyte. The outbreak in Tacloban City resulted in the hospitalization of 426 individuals and the death of 7 patients. Every living creature needs water to survive. Humans need water to optimally function in their everyday life. Water is a basic human right. Hence, it is a right for people to have access to adequate, safe, acceptable, physically accessible, and affordable water for personal and domestic use. Given the country's current water supply and sanitation challenges, the need to improve water security must be prioritized. UN Water defined water security as the capacity of a population to safeguard sustainable access to adequate quantities of and acceptable quality water for sustaining livelihoods, human well-being, and socio-economic development, for ensuring protection against waterborne pollution and water-related disasters, and for preserving ecosystems in a climate of peace and political stability. Dr. Andrew Barkett, British Geological Survey numerical modeler, has emphasized the ways BGS-led Philippine groundwater outlook, or FIGO, is improving water security in the Philippines, and this includes adapting to a warmer climate and a growing urban population, data-driven response to future demand for water, near real-time groundwater monitoring and forecasting, and education and schools engagement. Adapting to a warmer climate and growing urban population. With the effects of climate change to the country, including increasing temperature and decreasing rainfall during dry seasons and more intense rainfall events during rainy seasons, these events will surely worsen water availability during droughts and floods. In addition, the growth in population will put even more pressure on future water resources. Data-driven response to future demand for water. The absence of up-to-date information on groundwater levels contribute to a portion of water supply problem. Borehole sensors have been installed in several places around the province of Pampanga and Iloilo City. These sensors give near real-time groundwater monitoring data that may be utilized to anticipate seasonal and long-term groundwater levels and quality. Groundwater data, together with demographic and climate data, is used to anticipate flood and drought risk and simulate future implications on groundwater resources. Near real-time groundwater monitoring and forecasting. Data such as daily readings of groundwater quality and quantity, as well as electrical conductivity, which measures the water's capacity to conduct electricity, are used to anticipate groundwater levels on a seasonal and long-term basis. Education and schools engagement. The introduction to groundwater lessons were offered to primary and secondary school pupils and covered essential words and processes such as porosity and permeability, how water travels underground, and the types of sediments that are efficient at filtering contaminants. The materials for these seminars were translated in 4 different languages, allowing local teachers and university employees to present education activities to a bigger number of local schools. The call to take action for water security in the Philippines is urgent. The impacts of climate change and other social issues, such as the increasing population, may exacerbate the current water crisis the country is facing. Hence, the government must strive to provide the Filipino people with sustainable water supplies and systems, both now and in the future.
What an insightful discussion you have there, Ms. Antuca. Thank you so much for that. So, those were your top stories for today. We hope that the topics discussed spark your interest and urge you to act and do something. Don't forget to come back and tune in every Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays for more educational talks. It's been an amazing day. Once again, this is Vince Lumina, and this is Q6 News, the home of the most informative and the most relevant environmental discussions of today. Bye!